Hi folks, welcome to Yoga with Laurie. This session is about yoga for a healthy back, so welcome. Um, you'll notice I have a few props with me today. Um, I'm not usually the standard props that you see in a yoga studio because I realize many of you are at home and will improvise. So my bolster will consist of a series of couch pillows. My strap will be a necktie. And my blocks will be two evenly placed cylinders, cleaning fluids, right? That, like that. So the back, what a complex little issue. Let me take a seat as we explain this. So this class will cover a comprehensive set of movements that are both strengthening, stretching, and moving the range of motion that helps particularly those connections to the back. We have the hips and the legs attached at the lower end of the back, the tailbone area, the pelvic floor. And then, of course, as you come up, you have to the upper mid back, you have the shoulder blades attaching the shoulders. And then up higher, we move into the neck, the cervical spine, which in many ways is also just an extension of the back. It's hard to break up the different parts and say they're not relevant because each attachment to the spine, each attachment to the back has its own implications for pain in the back. And over 85% of Americans will experience back pain at some point in their lifetime. So we're talking about a major issue. So I'm going to strategize as we come into this. I want to firstly start with posture. And the posture is integral to a lot of our back issues. We tend to sit in forward flexion most of the day, right? I've been told we only come into back extension approximately 43 seconds a day, which is minimal to say the least. So if we're in constant forward flexion, what's going to happen is we're going to get a tightening across the chest, adaptive shortening, shoulders will come forward, which tends to drop the head down. We get that kyphosis of the spine, and we also get a tension in the lower back because of as the eyes drop down, the more you look down, let's say at a device or something, the eyes and the hips have a correlation. It's a pelvic ocular relationship. Eyes look down, the pelvis will tilt backwards. In other words, you'll tuck your tailbone. As the eyes look up, the pelvis will tilt forward. So just remembering that is already a big hint for your back. We need to look up more. We need the pelvis to tilt forward more to create back extension, which opens the chest. Now, if you have lordosis of the spine, where a little duck butt, then you're going to obviously not want to overextend the back. You want to find a nice neutral position. So let's find that neutral position. Firstly, you'll notice that I'm sitting on cushions. The reason I do that is when I come off the cushions, my knees elevate above the hips, and I find it more intense to sit up straight, more strain. So I don't want to have to create unnecessary effort for good posture. I will need to make some effort. So by elevating the pelvis, I'm using a couple of bolsters, and you could use more than a couple. You could have four bolsters. Let me put four cushions underneath me to really get those sit bones elevated. So you can see now the relationship between the sit bones and the knees is very different. Knees are dropped, sit bones are raised, pelvis is slightly tilted forward. If I rock from side to side, I feel stable. If I Rolodex my hips forward and backward, I pay attention and come to a point where I sense that the lumbar spine, the low back, the tailbone, is perpendicular to the mat. I push down and lift the ribs up. Shoulders roll up, back, and down. That opens the chest. Now to keep that chest supported, bring the back of the hands against the thighs, palms face up. Press into the thighs and start to feel the sensations that good posture calls upon the body to maintain. Now I have a lot of length in the front of the body. To lengthen the back of the body, I'm going to have to create a little more length in the spine. Push down with my sit bones and lift the back of the skull up. Very small movement. So I didn't lift the chin up. My eyes are looking out neutrally towards the camera. Now notice all the sensations here. There's a slight engagement in the abdominals, and that's to avoid duck butt, lifting the tailbone. Chest is open. I'm feeling stretch sensation across the front of the shoulders and the chest. So posture is something we can work on when we're in a chair, sitting, standing, walking. Just think about these relationships to take pressure off the back. Each inch the ears come forward of the spine adds approximately 10 pounds of weight to the cervical spine, which over time, over decades, creates its own issues. Close the eyes. Bring your attention to the breath. We often breathe in a very shallow portion of the lungs, usually the upper lungs only. Small, shallow breaths. Now, small, shallow breaths, while they keep us alive, they also keep the nervous system in a state of fight and flight. Now, we need to have the nervous system in a state of fight and flight for us to activate quickly, move, be busy. But once again, it's how much time do we spend in fight and flight? If it's excessive, there's a whole plethora of stress-related diseases that come along with being in an overly tense state. So by focusing on the breath, and there's many breaths in yoga, over 500 techniques we can adopt, or variations of techniques, 8 major systems. But if we focus on the breath and start to become conscious of our breaths, 20,000 every day, this can enhance the work of the back. This can help the spine remain flexible, strong. And by doing that, we have to engage the muscles that work not just the upper lungs, but the lower lungs. Start to bring your attention into the exhale. As you exhale, gently draw the navel back towards the spine. As you inhale, relax, let the belly expand. Exhale, squeeze. Relax to inhale. Start to feel this small pumping motion, engaging the abdominal muscles. And as you engage the squeeze, the tailbone slightly tucks. There's movement in the spine. So that movement in the spine becomes symbiotic with a deeper, slower breath. Start to exaggerate the squeeze. Exhale, squeeze empty, draw the navel back, tuck the tailbone, squeeze the pelvic floor. Relax to inhale. So start to be conscious of how the back moves with the breath. The back is not just a brick wall that forces the breath to be high. When you move the low back like this, the tailbone squeeze empty, the abdominals tucking the tailbone. Inhale, you feel the tailbone reach up, belly expands, tailbone tilts forward. You start to feel how the movement of the low back synchronizes with the breath. Let each new breath get a little deeper. Inhale, belly expands, then ribs, then collarbones lift and widen. Exhale, release, squeeze empty. Now starting to incorporate all the muscles from deep down in the pelvic floor all the way up into the neck. The scalene muscles also pulling that top rib up a little more, creating space in the rib cage to enhance the breath, to deepen the breath. Exhale, squeeze empty. If you feel lightheaded or strained in the breath, breathe with a little more ease, a little slower. Now, try to keep the breath in the foreground even as we do our movements today. Becoming aware of the breath can make a huge difference to the health of our back, allowing the back's flexibility to be there for us, to enhance the breath, not limit the breath. This also affects the nervous system as you slow the breath down. We move away from the state of flight and fright into a state of homeostasis, balance. Now, adding movement, we're going to move into the 6 directions of the spine. And I recommend you move the spine in 6 directions at least every 30 minutes during the day. Even if it's only for 30 seconds, just go through these 6 directions. In fact, there's 7 directions if you really think about it. The first direction we've taken care of by lifting the spine, lengthening through the back. So the next 6 directions come in pairs. To activate the first pair, the next time you inhale, sweep the arms around behind you. And as you exhale, bring them around in front of you as if you're hugging a big tree. Inhale, sweep the hands around the horizon, palms face outwards, bringing the hands closer together. Feel that stretch. Exhale, wrap around the tree and feel movement of the shoulder blades in that upper third of the back. Continue moving with the breath. Inhale as you sweep back. Exhale as you hug. Let the movement get a little bigger. So as you inhale, sweep, see if the hands can come back and touch. And then as they exhale, sweep them around, hug the tree, and let the head and the neck start to get involved with this movement. Coming back to this concept that as you open up, look up. Exhale, as you wrap the hands around the tree, look down. And start to feel how the spine flexes and extends. Flexes and extends. Now the next time you bring the hands behind you, clasp the hands. If you can't reach the hands, grab your tie like this and grab 2 ends of the tie, wrap the hands, and then hold the hands behind you and start to feel the stretch sensation. As you lift the chin, you start to feel the curvature in the back, especially that low back. Shoulder blades squeeze together, shoulders back and down. 48 seconds a day we come into this posture. We need to come into this posture much, much more. Breathe. Exhale, release. Bring the hands to the knees. Let the chin drop down to the chest and really open the shoulder blades. Push the pelvis a little further forward. Pull the navel back a little more. Really feel the stretch sensations in the back. And breathe. So there's our first two directions, extension and flexion. Come back to neutral. Notice how that's left you feeling. Now for lateral flexion, let's really break that down. Drop that left ear towards the left shoulder and start to feel the neck come into that first lateral movement. Drop the left hand down towards the ground and lean into that left side so you start to feel the spine leaning to the left. Inhale, float the right hand up. Feel the stretch sensations in the ribs and also where the pelvis connects to the ribs. The TFL muscle, the tensor fascia latae muscle, gets very tight down here. So it's very important to lengthen through the side body as well as the back and front body. Now reach that right hand over like a little rainbow, as if you're trying to reach the ground over you and start to feel the curvature in the spine in that lateral direction. And breathe. And lateral flexion of the spine is the safest way to move the spine for most of us. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, opposite side. Start by dropping the hand, dropping the right ear towards that right shoulder. Feel the neck coming to the first flexion. Enhance the stretch on that left side this time by reaching up with the left hand. Feel, notice, and then start to bend the elbow and allow yourself to come closer to the ground. Let that left hand reach over, curve over, and feel everything that goes into lateral flexion of the spine. Avoid the temptation to look down, to rotate the neck. And then float from side to side with the breath. Inhaling to neutral, both hands above the head. Exhaling to one side. If you have shoulder issues, you can always leave the hands down. Float side to side, bringing the breath once again into the foreground. The next time you come to neutral, pause. And just to explore the relationship between the legs and how we're sitting, let's change the cross of the legs. Now, we've been sitting with crossed legs for some time. If you have limitations or injuries to the knees or the hips and you need to have a leg extended, by all means, give yourself all the adjustments you need in order to take care of yourself. Okay? So coming into the twisting of the spine, the rotation of the spine, let's start with the cervical spine once again. Shoulders roll back and down, palms face up. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, turn the head to the right. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, left. Just notice how the neck feels before we start. Now that we've woken up the neck a little bit, refrain from turning the neck and just turn the shoulders to the right and bring the right hand behind you. Now the right hand can grab hold of clothing. You can tuck the right hand into the waistline of the pants. You can also grab your bolster. Now, holding on and anchoring that right hand brings that right shoulder back. Resist the temptation to shrug the shoulders, roll the shoulders back and down. Left hand, meanwhile, grabs clothing or right leg. So I'm holding myself in a thoracic twist. We'll talk more about the lumbar twist later on in the practice. Now, holding the twist, start to turn the head towards the right shoulder. Feeling the stability. Inhale the head to neutral. Exhale the head to the left shoulder. And continue moving the cervical spine independent of the thoracic twist. And notice the sensations that brings up. Marry the movement with the breath. The next time you come to neutral, pause, release, allow the body to unwind organically. And then exhale to the other side, bringing left hand around, anchoring left hand to clothing or bolster. Right hand anchors to left leg. Shoulders roll back and down. Keep the chin away from the chest, once again avoiding looking down. And then exhaling, turn the head to the right. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, left. Eyes can be open or closed. I like to close my eyes in my practice. It tends to bring my attention more inward. I can take more notice. I'm less likely to be distracted. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, release. So I talked about the potential for doing the 6 directions of the spine every 30 minutes during the day. And the reason I do this is going to maintain a lot of vitality in your spinal cord, in your spinal column. And as the central nervous system runs down through that back, it's really, really important to maintain a good highway, a good infrastructure. So by moving it regularly, we can do that. And it takes about 30 seconds. Let me show you a 30-second rendition. You can join me if you like. Inhale, back bend. Exhale, forward bend. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, left lateral flexion. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, right. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, twist to the right. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, twist to the left. So there's a little 30-second rendition. You could do it while you're on a chair at work. Very, very important to take care of the back. All right, we're going to get a little bit more into the low body now and the core of the body, just to be able to see its role in maintaining back health. So come onto all fours, hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Now for good table support, you'll notice that my hands are perpendicular to my shoulders, fingers spread comfortably wide, knees perpendicular to the hips. This is called tabletop position. Toes can be down or curled. I like to bring mine down. Now a little bit emulating the 6 directions of the spine. As you inhale, push the elbows towards each other without moving the hands, so you create a twisting of the muscle around the arm bones, and lift the chin, lift the eyes. So this creates that pelvic tilt forward, tailbone lifts. Exhale, release, let the elbows open out as you round the back. Looking back down towards the chest, between the legs, feeling the shoulder blades come apart. So cat and cow is a wonderful way to synchronize the breath, inhaling as you come into sacred cow, exhaling as you round to cat. On top of that, it's a strengthener for the low back. and for the abdominals. So it's giving that low back permission to move with the breath, to gain range of motion, flexibility, and stability. Very important, stability. We need to be stable in our body. The pelvic floor, the pelvis, the low back. We need to have good stability here to maintain back health. Now on the next inhale, extend the left leg behind you and push out through the left heel. Keep the heel, the toe of the ball of the foot grounded, so you get a delicious stretch through the calf and the hamstring. I'm using my hands to push back. If it gets too much for the hands, you can always come down onto the elbows and then float that foot up. We're going to enhance that core strengthening. Exhale, bring the head to the knee to the head, and extend back. As you get better at this, you can add the right hand, and you can bring elbow to navel, knee to head. A nice core strengthening exercise. You feel the movement in that left hip and the right shoulder. The next time you extend, you can pause or drop one hand. Drop the knee, bring the knees wide, toes together. Now this time have the toenails down on the mat and sink back into the hips if that's available to you. Drop the head down, support the head on fists or hands, or bring the forehead all the way to the mat. And then come up, we'll do the other side. And I'll turn around so you can see it from behind. Start with cat and cow. Inhale, extend that right foot, drop the ball of the foot, press out through the heel. So why am I stretching calf and hamstring when I'm talking about lower back? Yes, you got it right, because it's all connected. When the calf muscle, when the posterior chain of the leg is shortened, calf muscle particularly, and hamstring, this is going to create tension and pull on the low back. Float that foot up. Exhale, bend the knee. Extend back. Notice how I hold the toes perpendicular to the floor, back towards the shin. Drive out through the heel. You can add left hand if you like. And then come back to child pose, releasing, letting that low back stretch out. Knees wide so the belly comes down between the thighs. Let everything dissolve. So as you take care of the back, if you feel any twinges, anything that doesn't feel right, and it's always good to get checked out physically with the doctor if you need to make sure that the exercises I'm suggesting are safe for you. All right, coming back to the original one. This time I'm going to come into a muscle that's often neglected in our stretching. It's called the psoas muscle. Now to do that, I'm going to bring the right foot forward and I'll use my blocks. All right? So right foot is forward, and I'm going to walk that left knee back a little bit. And if you have a look in the video now, you can see that that left thigh bone, that left femur, is coming out from the hip at an oblique angle. Now, the more oblique that becomes, the more stretch sensation I feel in the hip flexors and the psoas muscle. Now, the toes down increases the stretch. Toes curled reduces, toes down increases. Walking the blocks back, stacking my shoulders more over the hips decreases the stretch. Leaning forward increases. So you have all these options and manners to control the amount of intensity you get into that hip flexor. This is more like a yin yoga pose because we're going to hold it for a little while. And when you hold poses for a little while, it's good to find the level of intensity that's just right for you. Not too much, not too little. It's a good chance to come back to your breath, close the eyes for a more introspective experience. You can always bring the hands down onto the mat. That takes you a little more intensity. You can come down onto elbows if you like. So there's all levels of intensity that you can add to dragon pose. It's important when you come out of a pose like this that you come out slowly. So take 3 more breaths. Now as you come back, bring the hands underneath, float that right foot back, and come back to a little cat and cow. And you might be wondering, why didn't I go back to child pose? Well, the main reason is we just open up that hip flexor tremendously. And we don't want to slam it shut with child pose. We don't want to fold that hip crease after stretching it wide open. Balance out the other side, bring the opposite foot forward. Start with your hands supporting on the props to support the body weight. That's going to allow you to move that back knee back a little further. Once again, dropping the toenails down, increase the sensation. Leaning forward, increase the sensation. So find that level of sensation that's appropriate for you today. Come back to the breath. Now, it's not uncommon that you'll find one-sided asymmetrical. So if you find one side more open than the other, that's usually because of the habits we've created in our body. Not even through injury, but simply we tend to habitually use one leg to stabilize it small, whereas the other leg will be more flexible. And as time passes, stay with the breath, stay with the sensation. And experiment every now and then. If you'd like to come down a little lower, you can remove the props. You can come all the way down. And the main thing is to find a level of sensation where the intensity doesn't distract you from the ability to breathe, and maybe the opportunity to relax the body even more in the pose. Exhale, release, bring the hands underneath, step that right foot back, and just for a moment, could you walk the hands back and rest your body weight on top of the shins? Now, if that's not your cup of tea, if that's too intense, you can always use a bolster or a block to elevate the pelvis so that you can get used to this stretching, not only of the back of the legs, but now we're moving into the front of the legs, top of the foot, top of the ankle, all through this chin, over the knees and into the quads. So this is also a very important stretch. You can lean back for more intensity. You can lift the knees off the ground. That will bring intensity into the top of the feet and the ankles. All right. So really stretching out through the legs, through the hip flexors, into the psoas muscle, which connects the low back to the leg. These are all very, very important aspects of taking care of the back. Come back to tabletop, hands on the shoulders. I'm going to do a series now and just notice how downward dog affects the back. If I curl the toes underneath my feet, spread the hands out nice and widely. Rotate the elbows in and forward as if you're holding $100 bills under the armpits. Inhale, keeping the knees bent, lift them up a few inches off the mat and push the hips backward. If you look at the video, you can see that my knees are deeply bent, and this gives me an opportunity to bring my attention to the hands, spread the weight evenly around the edges of the hands and the finger pads. Try to lengthen between the wrist and the elbow, and bring the elbows as if I'm trying to face them to the ceiling, so it wraps the shoulder blades around to the front of the rib cage. Lengthen through the spine, so I keep pushing the hips back, head comes closer and closer to the mat. And then last but not least, start to press the heels down towards the mat without letting the hips come forward, feeling all the sensations this brings to the back of the legs. If that's too intense, you can bend one knee and just push one heel back. And then change. Bend that opposite knee and push the opposite heel. Walking out your dog. This can be a nice way to feel so much of the back of the body stretching out, so much engagement in the front of the body. Exhale, bend the knees, come back to child's pose. Let everything go. Let the low back release. And the beautiful thing about yoga is there's so many variations, so many different postures and poses we can do that will both strengthen and open up the back. So I'm going to come into some of the boat variations and back bends, just to give you more variations. So upward facing boat, start by standing the feet on the mat. Roll the shoulders back and down. Bring your attention down into the navel. Avoid the temptation to overarch and push the chest out like this. We want a good solid base core. Now there's many variations. You could just lift one foot up and hold it like this. Curl the toes back towards the shin. You could play with that, lifting one side and then the other side. So this is all good core engagement. Alternatively, you could bring one foot up and then the other and find a balance point. So find that balance point. Avoid hunching the shoulders up towards the neck. And you'll start to feel intensity in the hip flexors, the abdominals, and the low back. Slowly start to straighten the legs. And then you can release the hands, palms face upwards. As the intensity builds, it's good to come back to the breath. And you should start to feel some heat in the quadriceps. You should feel heat in the hip flexors, low back. And you can always drop the feet and Come back and join. And then slowly come down. Slowly come down. Allow yourself to come down onto your mat. And just notice the after effect of both poses. Start to feel where you felt that in the hips. And again, we're looking at poses that help stabilize the spine. So we want the spine both stabilized, supported, as well as flexible for range of motion. It's a delicate balance. Being overly flexible without stability puts the back at risk. And being very, very tight and very, very strong and firm without flexibility also puts the back at risk. Bend the knees. As you bend the knees, stand the feet hip-width distance apart. Avoid the temptation to bring the knees together at any point or open them out wide. So you want to keep the soles of the feet planted on the earth. Grab the hip bones and start to roll the decks of the hip forward and backward, like you're doing cat and cow. Find neutral. And now, as you inhale, press down with the feet and lift the hips up off the ground. Let the hands fall beside you, palms face up. Exhale, lower the back down. And if you can, move by articulating the vertebra one at a time. So this is a great mental focus exercise, and it teaches you how to rotate and move the pelvis to maintain that one vertebra at a time lift and one vertebra at a time as you lower. It also slows you down so you start to feel the sensations. And most importantly, allows you to synchronize the movement with the breath. Inhale as you lift. Exhale as you lower. Now the next time you lift, pause and hold. Establish firm feet. Engage the inner thighs so the knees don't come in or spread out. Lift the pelvis a little higher by squeezing the glutes so they help support the hamstrings. Now, rock from shoulder to shoulder, and as you do, walk the shoulders closer towards your heels. So this is going to lift your pelvis even higher to the ground. Make sure the back of the neck feels supported underneath you. Don't have anything underneath the neck. You'll feel the sternum moving up towards the chin. Feel the breath. Slow the breath down. Maintaining good squeeze in the buttocks. Hold. If this is too much for you, slowly come back, grab a block or a bolster and support the hips with the bolster. For a little more intensity, see if your hands can reach the back of your heels. Walk the shoulders even closer. You might even be able to reach the front of the shins. And as you do, push down with the heels and lift the hips even higher. Feel the breath. For 3 more breaths. And then slowly release. And notice how the back feels after. Walk the shoulders apart. Let the shoulder blades hug down to the mat. And if you can, bring the kneecaps together, feet apart, and let the low back press into the mat. This is called constructive rest pose. Feet apart, feet flat, pigeon-toed, knees together. Keep the low back planted as you breathe. Keep the shoulder blades planted as you breathe. So I'm going to recommend you do this once a day. If you don't do any other yoga, just come into constructive rest pose. This neutralizes the tightness of the psoas muscle, gives pressure, it gives relief to the pressure on the low back. And once again, it's a great opportunity to bring your attention inwards onto the breath, bringing homeostasis to the nervous system. When I say homeostasis to the nervous system, I mean we're bringing the nervous system into a state of balance between fight and flight and relaxation response. So we're not just trying to relax in our yoga, we're also trying to find a point of balance, balanced awareness, where you're both alert and relaxed. And bring the knees up, grab hold of the knees and hug them towards the chest, and notice the relief that brings into the low back as you rock from side to side. And then we're going to come into some more lateral strengthening of the spine. I want you to lie on one side, preferably where you can see the screen. Whoops. Aligning the ankles, knees, pelvis, and shoulders up with the head. Now the head can be supported with the hand, elbow bent, or you can just rest it on the bicep, depending on what feels right for your body. So you can start to see the lateral flexion already beginning from the neck, and then we're going to create the opposite lateral flexion down low by lifting one leg. Now lifting the leg like this is already creating strengthening along the IT band, the muscles that run on the outside of the abductor, and this is going to help support that kneecap. So I want to keep the foot parallel to the ground, toes curled back. This top hand can stabilize me for balance. Now the next time you lift, hold, and then start to work the bottom foot up and down. Start to feel a different sensation here. Core strength, core engagement, great for stability of the spine. Now the next time that foot comes up, that lower foot, keep it up and then bring the top foot down to meet it. So now you can see that lateral flexion ready for side boat. Parsvanavasana. You can release that bottom hand, bring the palm up. You can bring the balancing hand over. And breathe through the sensations of side boat. You can try and lift that shoulder a little more. That's going to engage. The core muscles more. And then exhale, release, roll onto the belly, stack the hands under the forehead. And just feel the effect. And this is another great pose to keep in mind if you're feeling stressed, is to simply lay on the belly, legs straddled widely, palms down, stacked, forehead resting on stacked hands. And then roll to the other side. I'm going to turn around so you can see me. Once again, find a position for the head alignment, ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, and head. And start with that elevation of the top leg, creating stability, strength in the abductors, helping stabilize that knee joint. So you can see all these different aspects of the body that support the back. Next time you lift, hold, and start to lift and lower the bottom leg. Try to keep that top leg stable so you're not dropping the top leg to meet the bottom leg. You're inspiring the bottom foot to come up higher. Now lift and hold, bring the feet together. Extend the arm if you like, hand over. Feel Parsvanavasana on the opposite side. Great time to focus on the breath. Exhale, release, curl up into a little ball. Come into fetal pose on the side of the body. Now we've done a lot of work with the strengthening of the back, stretching the back. This next piece is an important part to the puzzle. It's called a transition. So after all this good work on the back, how do you transition safely without putting undue stress on the back? So the way I like to do it is to ask you to plant that front hand right in front of the chest and just get used to this motion for a moment. Roll the face and the top shoulder towards the mat and then back. Just a small motion. Try that again. Exhale, face and shoulder come towards mat. Inhale, come back to the fetal pose. So usually when we get up, we tend to roll onto our back. But this way I'm teaching you the art of rolling forward. So you're changing the center of gravity on the body. So that's one aspect of the movement. The next one is to keep the bottom knee curled up nice and tight, but push and lengthen the top leg away from you. Try that again. Bend the top knee, push it away. Bend, push away. Bend all the way back to fetal pose. Now, what would happen if we brought that together? Spread the hand nice and wide in front of the chest. Start to roll the face and the top shoulder towards the mat, and as you do, extend the top leg away from you, which creates a little seesaw balance over the hips, a pivot point. Push the left hand into the mat and slowly press up and bring the right hand underneath that right shoulder so both hands are supporting you without any strain or stress on the low back. You notice that? Very, very important to give that back a nice, easy re-entry to sitting. And then come onto your sit bones. Now, we're going to take our pillows or our bolsters behind us. I'm going to make mine too high, and basically you want the length of the bolster to at least be from the back of the crown of the head down to your low back here. Start with your back to the bolster and bring your fist one fist away from the bolster. Stand the feet on the mat and then slowly drape the spine and back down onto the bolster. So you'll notice my head is on, torso down all the way to the low back. My hips are on the ground. Now this isn't a particularly high elevation. I could stack a blanket here if I liked, but I'm creating a back bend. It's a restorative back bend. So instead of classic Shavasana, I'm ending in a back bend. Remember I said earlier, 48 seconds a day is about how often we come into a back bend. So we could set ourselves up on a daily basis, maybe to spend 5 to 10 minutes just in a back bend, supported like this. Soles of the feet together, knees together, palms face upwards. That's the most stable way to support the back bend. And slow the breath down. If you wanted more pelvic opening, more hip opening, you could bring the soles of the feet together, knees split out to the side. Now that's going to intensify the back bend. So that might be something to keep in mind if you want a little more intensity in the back bend. You could also just simply extend the legs out. So you have variations here. And rather than simply go into an unconscious state now would be a good time to focus on the breath. The more times you can focus on the breath, the more it will become a habit. The more times you consciously focus on the breath, the more control you have over your anxiety and stress. And simply pay attention to the breath. So paying attention can be trigger words for people. So let's simply put it as focusing our attention without judgment and analysis on our breath. Focus our attention without judgment or analysis on the breath. Simply feel the breath. Feel the sensations of breath. Feel the rhythm of muscular engagement with breath. Feel sensations in the nostrils with breath. Consciously relax with each exhale. Letting everything go. Notice how the back feels. On the next inhale, bend the knees. And just for a moment, pause and decide whether you'd like to continue in this extended back bend or finish the table. Gently bring one hand under the head and roll to that side, safely coming off the support of the back. Press up without stress, extending top leg, rolling forward, coming up slowly. And just for a moment, taking something to sit on, coming back to our original posture at the end of our practice. Make sure you feel stable. Shoulders roll back and down, ribs lift. Sit bones Push down, back of the head up. And take a moment to feel gratitude for this body and all the experiences it brings. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.